these factors play a very important role as to why Sweden has been so successful in looked upon by our neighboring European countries, or rather the whole of Scandinavia is very successful, has very intricate and a very well aligned education policy. But we are also, there is a backlash which is happening, and we are not without faults. There is a difficulty that is cropping up, which is seeping into the education system, which I will talk about later. Now, Swedes are also amongst the most literate people on the planet, like 99.9% is the literacy rate. Why is this? This is because all Swedes are encouraged to read every time. There are special sessions in schools, there are special classes in schools, there are special adult education circles that encourage you to read and encourage citizens, irrespective where they are in their life or how old they are, to get back into the education system. It can be informal, it can be formal, it can be non-formal as well. So this is the reason why Swedes are cited as some of the most literate people on the planet. Okay, now in 2010, we, of course, skollagen means the Swedish school law, was enacted, and this is a part of inclusive education. And of course, Sweden has ratified and signed and ratified the Salamanca Declaration in '94. But the skollagen kind of honed in, it kind of zoomed in into ensuring that each and every child is able to reach their full potential in school. Each and every child should have equal access to school. And also it lifted, it kind of underpinned that special needs education is and will be centered on your child. So in other words, special needs and inclusive education, let's say, and I think before I continue, I must say that when we talk about inclusive education, we immediately, when I ask my students, what do you mean by special education? What do you mean by, what is your understanding of special education, or what is your understanding of inclusive education? And the first word that jumps into their mind or pops up in their mind is children with disabilities. And my question is why? Why is that? Why do we have this picture in our mind that we connote special education with children with special needs, inclusive education with children with special needs? Because to me, that is absolutely, it's a very narrow description of the word. It's a very narrow definition of the term. Special education is for every child. You do not have to be differently abled to need help, right? Some children are weak in maths, but they are okay in other subjects. So that is where special education comes in, to help you understand the subject. Special needs education is different. When we talk about special needs education, that is more or less centered on disabilities or the exceptional child. And another thing I would like you to remember as well, or keep in mind, that in Sweden, we are doing away with the word disability. So when we have our courses at the Department of Special Education, we talk about exceptional child. So when we use a label such as exceptionality, right? And in Swedish, it is called funktionsvariation, means what? Like each child, every individual, every adult, they have different abilities. And when you broaden the description, you fit in each and every child within that definition. So we are trying to do away with labeling a child, because when you label, it's very easy to discriminate and it's very easy to exclude, okay? All right. Now, in Sweden, this is the overall kind of the structure of the education system or the ministry. We have at the top, like in all countries, you have the Ministry of Education and Research. Then it's further subdivided into three parts. That is the National Agency for Education, which looks at regular schools or normal mainstream schools. Then we have the Swedish Schools Inspectorate, which inspectorate means also, you have inspectors, school inspectors that come and check that whether the schools are following the guidelines as kind of emphasized by the Ministry of Education or by the National Agency for Education, that looks at teacher resources, that looks at curriculum, that looks at the syllabus, and also the resources, the budget, the infrastructure, the school, whether it has the capacity for students, and also tries to limit the intake of students so that it is not too much for a teacher to handle. So basically, on an average, each Swedish school, we have like 30 to 35 students, which is too much. Nowadays, that's initially they used to have 20. The ratio was 1:20. Now the ratio is becoming 1:35 because the population is increasing. And then we have the National Agency for Special Needs Education and School, that is the SPSM. And this National Agency for Special Needs only focuses on children with exceptional children with special needs. Okay, so this is your three broad subdivisions. And then at the bottom, we have the municipality level, public schools and independent schools. Now, Sweden is a very decentralized country. Okay, so each region has communes or municipalities, and each municipality within the city looks after the education. So they have their own budget, okay, and then they are the ones responsible for education within their municipality or within their commune. We call commune instead of municipality. And in Sweden, we have both public schools and independent schools. Now, public schools are the government schools, and independent schools are partly owned by the government and private, right? So, but the students we do not have any tuition fees from grade 1 onwards. So basically, your higher education and your primary and secondary education is free. Free in the sense that we do not pay tuition fees, but you also must keep in mind that the taxation is extremely high in Sweden. So because our ability to pay high taxes, this takes care of the other sectors, okay? This takes care of our health as well, the social security, because government hospitals are also, we don't have to pay if one is admitted into a hospital, we do not pay. We do not pay for the accommodation. We only pay a very nominal charge. So for the doctor's fee, which is an extremely nominal payment. Otherwise, everything is on taxpayers' money, right? So this you have to keep in mind. Yeah, we also have private schools that are fee-paying schools, which are basically restricted to diplomats. We have regular children or citizens, children also going there, but it's extremely high, and people usually prefer not to go to a fee-paying school. They prefer the public schools or the independent schools, which are equally good. And another thing we must keep in mind is the public school Swedish is the medium of instruction, whereas in most or some independent schools, they are bilingual. So they have half of the curriculum is taught in Swedish, and the other half is taught in English. Plus, we have something called modersmål. Modersmål is mother tongue teaching. So it depends where you come from. You have mother tongue teachers that come in after school to teach the child their mother tongue. So you can have Urdu, Arabic, you name it, Chinese, Japanese. We have all the regular Spanish, all the regular and all the main, whatever the child comes from, whatever background the child comes from, whichever country or nationality the child represents, we have a mother tongue teacher in place. Okay, this is very quickly, this is what the Swedish school looks like. This is the structure. You have your preschool and the preschool class, which is your kindergarten, right, and infants. Now the infant and the kindergarten classes are fee-paying, right? But the tuition fee, children usually get admitted into an infant, into the infants when they are 15 months old up to age 6. And the preschool class is, we call it for schooler, which is like what do you call that? It's a reception class before they begin grade 1. And over here, we start the formal schooling slightly later. That is when the child completes 7 years or is about to complete 7 years of age. Okay. Now, another very interesting factor we need to keep in mind is your preschool. The tuition fee that one pays or parent pays is based on the resources or the capacity of the parent. So the tuition fee is adjusted according to the capacity, parents' capacity of if their ability to pay the fee. So it's not a flat amount that a parent has to pay. Okay, and then another thing I would like to, I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I would like to point out two more. One is your you have the Sami school, and then you have children with learning disabilities. Now, most of the time in the regular schools, you have children with disabilities, but not with severe or multiple disabilities that are included in the regular school. Let's say dyslexia, ADHD, autistic children. That also depends on autistic spectrum disorder is wide, right? Is broad. So it depends on what is level of autism. Sometimes autistic child are included within a regular school because they want to encourage this inclusive education or inclusion. So even what we define as normal, they're able to see and interact with children who have different abilities, right? And then we have separate schools for adults with intellectual impairment. And we have another thing, what I would like to point out is your folk high school. Now, what is a folk high school? A folk high school is like for children, for adults, who due to some reason have been were unable to continue, had to discontinue their studies, so they can get back into the formal education at any point of their lives. So it really doesn't, I mean, age is not a factor out here in Sweden. You can be, I know, I have colleagues who have completed their PhD when they turn 60. Over here, the retirement age is 68, is going to be pushed up to 70. So, age is not a factor. So people are, the population, the citizens are encouraged to get back into mainstream education at any point of their lives, and they are helped by the government as well to do so. And then we have, the other thing before I forget is the leisure time centers. Now, what are leisure time centers? They are not, leisure doesn't mean that the children just run around and just play. These are structured, there are structured activities so that after school hours, children spend time in these leisure time centers where they learn to play chess, where they learn to knit, where they learn to, do carpentry. And these are some of the areas that are encouraged. The reason is that parents can work, right? That is why the preschool was started, to encourage both parents to get back into the working mode, let's say. Otherwise, it is no, if either parents, they stay at home, then there will be impact on the economic resources, right, within their standard of living, let's say. And another thing, the Swedish policy is both parents, like father and mother, they can take maternity or, let's say, paternity leave, 120 days, right? Each one can take, both the father and the mother can take 120 days each. That's 240 days. And this is kind of, it can spill over for 10 years before the child is, I think, 7 or 8, or before the child, you have to complete it within a certain time frame. I'm slipping my mind. I think it's before he turns 7. I'm not very sure, but they've changed the laws recently. So what I can do is, when I was at home and my husband is working, if I have a lot of leave left over, which I have not used, I can I present this to my husband, or the other way around. And when you stay at home, the maternity or the paternity leave, you are paid 80% of your salary, right? This is very important to keep in mind. Okay, now since I live in Stockholm, I will just tell you very quick what do we do in Stockholm for special needs children. You have special schools run by the state for children and young persons who are prevented by vision impairment, deafness, hearing impairment, or speech impairment. And there are 8 such schools, and the state pays all the pupils' expenses, including boarding house accommodation and travel. So when a child completes 12 years, or when a child is a teenager, the state provides the facility that they can spend their weekends in these boarding schools or these residential schools so that parents can get a break, right? And this is completely funded by the state. And another very important factor is that if children who have severe disabilities, who have multiple disabilities, who are unable to communicate, we have taxis, which is also run by the state to pick up the child from home, bring them to school, and then drop them back home as well. And also each a special needs child, if they are autistic, again, depending on the level of their disabilities or the severity of the disabilities, they have assistance. So you always have an assistant teacher that accompanies the child wherever he goes. He shadows the child so that the child has a support system, because some of the children, those that have very violent social emotional behavior, it is very difficult to put them in a class with regular children, or in a class which has, the capacity is more than 10. So these children need the strength of the class should be a bit less. And also sometimes they cannot include them or adjust them even in a group of 5. So they need special assistance. Okay. Yeah. Now, schooling for the intellectually handicapped is compulsory from 9 years, 7 to 16 to 17, and this type of school is divided into basic schools and training schools. And training is for those who are unable to assimilate instruction in basic school, whereas basic school is for pupils who are considered capable of learning to read and write and acquiring new knowledge through these skills. For persons over 20, there are similar education programs within adult education. And usually it's a 4-year duration. And also there is a lot of emphasis that adults with special needs are seen as human resource. Means what? It means that they can contribute to the economy. Okay, they're not a social responsibility, they are a human resource, right? And again, children with intellectual disabilities and they are encouraged to work after once they become adults, right? And this kind of work is very simple work. And we have the supermarkets, they're basically there in packaging and sometimes in restaurants doing the basic job, but they are encouraged to work and become financially independent as much as possible. Okay. All right. Now, Sweden's disability policy, and there is a huge focus in improving accessibility between different levels of government, public agency, and the government and parliament establish guidelines for disability policies, mainly through legislation. Government agencies have a national responsibility for specific sectors, including education, healthcare, and employment. And the county councils are responsible for health and medical care. The 290 Swedish municipalities are responsible for education and social services, among other things. So there is a lot of emphasis not only on the legislation, but also on accessibility. So there is infrastructural support for children who are differently abled or the exceptional child. If you go to a school, they have, the classrooms are designed in such a way that a child can move around within the classroom. And, like sometimes children, some children, they feel very claustrophobic and they need some like space. So the classrooms are modeled and structured in that way. There are ramps in the classrooms so children with wheelchairs can enter and leave without any difficulty. So we have headphones, even not only in schools, but also at the university, right? It is mandatory that we use a mic or a speaker when we are addressing or when we are giving our lectures to ensure that everybody understands. It is irrespective of whether we have different needs, but it is a guideline and a law that you have to lecture using, even if it's a class of 10 or 20 at the university, right? Okay, and we have international cooperation, the UN standards rules on the equalization of opportunities for persons with disabilities. Then we have signed and ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And the convention is legally binding. As a result, Sweden has committed to ensuring that national legislation does not discriminate against people with disabilities. So this is basically what the Swedish structure looks like. And as far as special teachers education in Sweden is concerned, we have special teachers that is focuses on language, writing and literacy development, math development, deafness or hearing impairment, visual impairment, blindness, language impairment and severe learning disabilities. There is also a special pedagogue in education without specific directions. Now, when I talk about, when you talk about special teachers, they are very focused. They are focusing on one aspect or one factor, such as language, writing, or literacy, or deafness, or visual impairment. And but special pedagogue is a different level altogether. A special pedagogue, or as we say in Swedish, a specialpedagog, is like the person who kind of monitors the special teachers, right? And she is like the bridge within the teachers and the management that consists of the school, the board, the governing board. So if there is any problem, he will relay the information to the management and they will try to work it out. Or if it's also vice versa, if the management wants a special teacher to focus, or there is an issue, or they want them to have certain things, or there is a requirement, so they convey it to the special pedagogue, and the pedagogue in turn conveys it to the special teachers. Now, a special pedagogue is, or a special pedagogue, there is a couple of them in every commune. So usually a commune has like 10 or even more, depending on the resources, depending on the availability, depending on the number of schools in the particular commune or the municipality. Special pedagogues that go around to the schools that have children with special needs, or even regular schools, right? Okay. This was the first part of the lecture that focused or gave you an idea about what the Swedish system, education system looks like, right? And now we are going to look at how has the ministry or the government reacted in response to the corona pandemic. Okay, now Sweden has followed a different path compared to other European countries, leaving many education institutions open. That means from the preschool to grade 6 or 7, I'm not quite sure, but I know definitely that until grade 7, the schools were open, or it could be the schools were open. There was a reason behind that. The reason being, if all schools, right, secondary and the primary and the kindergarten had been shut down, then either parent would be compelled to stay at home and look after their children. And there would be a scarcity or a tension in the health sector, because some of these parents are nurses, some of them are doctors, or they work in other areas of the health sector. So in order to avoid this, Sweden kept the primary school and the kindergarten and the infants open, right? The daycare, we call it the daycare here, they open. And this has kind of come under severe criticism, right? And whereas higher education institutions were shut, and we, as the rest of the world, overnight, we had to switch to online teaching, and we had to switch to the virtual space. So that had its other tensions as well. And because of this, there was a lot of criticism that we faced, that why are schools open, especially the primary schools. Yeah. Then even part school closures and distance learning, they have followed a unique policy concerning school closures, keeping schools for children aged 7 to 15 and preschools open. 13th March, a new act was adopted following the government to temporarily close preschools and other education. Should the situation deteriorate, but it never deteriorated, right? And a new ordinance was put in place, giving the responsible organizer the temporary right to close an educational activity under certain conditions if there was a widespread infection, all right? And As I said, following recommendations from Public Health Agency of Sweden, upper secondary schools, municipal adult education, vocational adult education, and higher education institutions have provided distance learning since mid-March and will continue to do so until further notice. But another thing that needs to be kept in mind that the transport system was working, was open, but we were encouraged to stay and work from home as much as possible. Only if there was an absolute necessity were we asked to go to school, to the university, right? Otherwise, as being all employees of Stockholm University or everywhere else in Sweden and all offices, everything was closed. Everything was closed officially, but we could access, and the bus transport system was running as regularly, as smoothly as possible. But what they did was that you could not enter the bus where, from the side, the first door, that is when you enter and you see the driver and then you go in, you couldn't do that. So they kept that door shut to minimize infection, because if the driver fell ill, there wouldn't be no one else to drive the buses, right? So what they did, they opened the sides of the bus where you basically disembark from, so we could enter from that side. Yeah, and it's still continuing. We don't know till how long this will continue, and Stockholm University will gradually reopen in autumn, very, very gradually. If the courses that have a smaller intake of students, that's say 20, they will be campus meets, or we will have face-to-face teaching. But those with a large number of student strength, that will still be online. But that is what we've heard, that we are planning to open gradually in autumn. Okay. And the overall impression thus far is that the shift to distance education has worked out well. Schools have made great efforts to overcome digital challenges and safeguard access to online resources. Many schools were already utilizing digital platforms and digital tools even before the pandemic outbreak, which was, I think, a plus, a bonus, that they were already. Sweden is it's a digital country, and it's a cashless country. We don't carry money, we don't carry paper money. Everything is online, everything is through Swish. So, and even schools, especially in secondary onwards, even in let's say from grade 6 or grade 5th onwards, some of the assignments have to be completed online. So children are very well versed with working online, with the digitalization. And another thing, before I forget, is when a child begins the first grade of the first class in the primary school, each child is given a tablet, right? Because this helps them, they give them homework, and these tablets are funded by the commune. So they are very, very used to completing or working online, and they can bring these tablets home so that they can work from home also during vacation. Okay. All right. What were the challenges for work-based learning? The main challenge, as now, and the first point is when you have work-based learning programs and apprenticeships, could be still carried out, provided that the workplace is capable of taking on a student or an apprentice. However, the economic impact of the coronavirus on the business sector has been severe. And it can also be jeopardized by a situation where employees are simply far too busy. And this is especially true of the healthcare sector, which for obvious reasons is under tremendous pressure. And another limitation is that minors are not allowed in workplaces where there is a risk of being exposed to severe infectious diseases. If a school organizer is not able to find a suitable workplace in the current situation, an exception from the recommendation makes it possible to organize vocational training for small groups of students in the school building. So they play it basically by the year. If there is a possibility, you have the work-based learning ongoing, but if there is a difficulty, then it does not, naturally, it cannot take place, and time is pushed on to sometime later in the future. We have increased grants for adult education. to make it easier to study throughout the country, and support measures for teachers, school leaders, and school organizers that are continuously in touch with the Swedish National Agency for Education. Of course, during the pandemic, mental health is a huge issue, is a huge concern of the government, because we miss that, man is a social animal, or let's say we humans are social animals, and we miss that connection when you can sit and have basically coffee with your friend. And this kind of aggravates the situation, even among students that were unable to go out. But yes, we could meet our friends, we could meet our, colleagues outside, but also in smaller groups, not a group of 10 or 25 or 10, maximum 10, not more than that, or 20. Now it's become 20. Right. And the agency has used its website to publish advice on how to interpret recently enacted legislation to address the coronavirus, as well as related recommendations from the Public Health Agency, disseminate examples of best practices in distance learning, put out related films, podcasts, and radio programs to inspire and support teachers and school organizers, launched in cooperation with other stakeholders a platform, Skoola Hemma, that is, homeschooling. How do you meet the needs of schools during the coronavirus? Not only the schools, but also the students, the teachers, and all that are related, all that have a stake in schooling in the country. What is the different degree of digital competences? And it is considerable, differs considerably between teachers and students, which challenges educational equity. And to compensate for these, sometimes, as in India, as in other areas of the world, where we also have certain areas, especially in north of Sweden, where it's difficult to access Wi-Fi because it's quite remote. So the schools are open, and children can come into the school to access the Wi-Fi, even though recommendation is distance learning is recommended for all. But then you have bigger classrooms, and we ensure that they sit, they have enough, they sit in isolated places so that they are not cramped up in one room. And even the employees, as an employee of Stockholm University, by Stockholm University, when we have lectures, and if you are working from home, and supposing we have connectivity issues, we are also provided with mobile phones, which we have, and mobile data. So in case there's a problem, we can switch to data, which is provided by the university to carry out our online lectures or meetings or teachings or discussions, etc. Right? And what do we do? And reaching out to students with special needs. Yes, that is a huge problem, because they are at a risk of falling behind if they do not get adequate support. As a remedy, exceptions from the recommendations have been allowed, which makes it possible to support students with special needs in the school building. And so we have assistants, we have special needs teachers or special teachers that are making sure that they are continuously with them, right? And another positive and unexpected but positive effect is that, for those students that are very shy, that are introvert, and have an extended history of absenteeism, they find it easier to participate and engage in studies because it is online, because it is in the virtual space. Okay, now I'm nearly towards the end of my lecture, but what I would like to point out is that, as when the students out here, when they are doing the undergraduation, or they are an undergrad, they have the ability, or the possibility, let's say, not the ability, but the possibility of taking loans from the government, because some of them, they they stay in North Sweden, or in they're studying at Stockholm University. They want to buy, or they want to rent, wouldn't say buy, but want to rent an apartment, and they don't have the means. So what you can do is you can take student loan, which is from CNN, and which you pay back gradually once you get a job. Once the student is employed, portion of her salary gets deducted to pay back. So you see, basically, where resources are concerned, or where monetary issues are concerned, or the economic possibility is concerned, there is always a backup. There is always a backup. So you don't, nobody is left stranded. And to enable health and medical, and what they have done is that during this pandemic, since there was some of the schools or some of the lectures had to be cancelled, the student loans will not, the students do not have to pay back if there is no teaching, right? So they can keep the money basically. So that's also the stress level goes down, and because that impacts your mental health. To enable health and medical care students to work in the healthcare sector without the student aid being reduced, the government proposes that the income ceiling for all those receiving student aid be temporarily removed in 2020. So those that are working in the healthcare and medical, and also recently when the pandemic broke out, Scandinavian Airlines had to lay off a considerable size of their staff. So what they did was basically they retrained them, they upgraded the employability skills, and this staff started working in the health sector. For there is a huge scarcity or shortage of nurses within Sweden, so they started training this group so that they could work in case there were in case there was a crunch, and in case we needed more staff or nurses within the health sector because of the pandemic. And the Swedish Council for Higher Education, that is UHR, has decided that the Swedish scholastic aptitude tests would not be conducted in spring 2020. The government is reviewing how this should be dealt with ahead of the autumn's intake. So because of the tension, because of the pandemic, the Swedish scholastic text aptitude test was not conducted in spring. And another thing, before I forget, when a student, they do their postgraduate studies, and if you are a Swedish citizen, you get something called a minor field studies. The minor field studies is given by SIDA, that is a Swedish international agency, and which allocates fund into the university, different departments of the university. And with this aid, there is a list of countries that where a student can carry out research. So I have a student who went to Thailand to carry out her research, and what happened was she had to be back. Everything, the borders shut. She went, and you have to stay there for 2 months, right? Because if you don't stay there, the money you have to return the amount that is given to you, and the amount is 24,000 Swedish kroners for 2 months. I don't remember how much it will be. It will be approximately 3 lakhs. 3 lakhs if I convert it into Indian currency, I think, or it could be more or less, I'm not very sure. But yeah, but because of this pandemic, we were told to inform the student that she could come back even after a month, and she should not worry about returning the amount back to SIDA or to the university as such, because these were extraordinary circumstances. As long as she had got her data, she could come back. Okay. So to put it in a nutshell, so when we talk about inclusion, we have a regular scenario and we have an extraordinary scenario, which we are all living in right now, which is going to be the new normal, right? So how do you increase fellowship? Because inclusion is about increasing fellowship, increasing participation, increasing democratization, and increasing benefit. So how do we do this? So inclusion should not be impacted by the circumstances because it is an ongoing process. It is how you can tune in the circumstances that inclusion is still being carried out and is still is an integral part of the education system and of the community and of the society, of the country. Because when we talk about, I'm not sure if the students are aware of Bronfenbrenner's ecological model, because when you look at the model, inclusion begins right from home, right? It begins right from home all the way up, and it's a two-way process. So inclusion understood as a concept also needs to be defined, and how we use inclusion to ensure that there is a stability and we do not narrow the definition by kind of connoting it with only special needs. Yes, special needs is an important factor, but also each and every child, so that no child is left behind in the process where education is concerned, or where social justice is concerned, or where social capital is concerned, communities, ethnicities, race, language, there's so many of them. That inclusion is a vital tool to ensure that we reach our goal and our aim. Yes, thank you so much. I think I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your patience. Please let me know if you have, I look forward to some questions. Yeah. Pratida, are you there?
Yes, I am there.
All right, great.
Okay, I would request the audience as well as the respected professors and the teachers, if they have any question, they can directly ask Khaleda, because Khaleda loves interaction. So if you would be kind enough to ask her some questions.
I have given a question. I am Siddhi Chakraborty.
Sir, kindly please ask the question directly to her. She will be more than happy to answer.
Okay, okay. So can you she hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, I can hear you. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The thing
Thank
is
you.
that you are talking of the immigrants. That
Yes.
you have shown a beautiful model actually. So whether the government is taking tuition fees or the fees for the service they will provide to the immigrants, that is very, very important.
Thank you for your question. That was a very, I'm happy that you brought about, you spoke about the immigrants, because I was waiting for the audience to pick up on that. But no, there is no tuition fee for the immigrants. They are, they are included in the government plans. But yes, there is sometimes a problem that has arisen is we do not have, there's a scarcity of teachers who speak the language, because we have a lot of refugees from Syria from 2015, and that has changed the demographic profile of Sweden. Okay, and so we are trying our best to include them in the society, and some of them are already teaching at Stockholm University. But there is no fee, no tuition fee, which is levied on immigrants to no one actually. They don't charge any. Once you are living in Sweden and you have the permanent or a temporary citizenship, you do not have to pay any fees, if you're an immigrant or an asylum seeker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I've answered your question.
I have one question, madam.
Please do. Thank you.
Yes, madam Khaleda, it is nice to follow your lecture. I have not followed full lecture, but I have followed few areas. So what is your view that is inclusion of the performing arts in the course curriculum of this inclusive education? Performing arts means dance, drama, music, etc. What is your view?
I think we have special schools. We have the music gymnasium. We have music högskola. So you have regular schools. It is very much included, and I'm very happy you brought that up, because even for children that are that who have an ability to sing, and who they need special kind of encouragement. We have something called the music cluster. This is a special school for children, and they give auditions, and they are where the curriculum is divided into performing arts as well as the academics. So there is a perfect balance. So it is all a part of inclusion. It is all a part of inclusive society that we follow in Sweden. And because my children go into a school, she's going to be in grade 6, and she goes into a school which focuses on performing arts as well as academics. So there is a fine balance between the two, both at the primary level and right up to the way into higher education. Yeah, thank you.
So do you find any absenteeism rate in the non-performing arts school and the performing arts school? Is there any difference between the two? Have you observed anything?
That's an excellent question. Because the problem, well, I'm very happy that you brought this up. The problem is that when you have the performing schools, the children are very, very motivated. Okay. But also when you have the public schools, the regular schools, it depends also in which part of the city the school is located, because the location plays an important role. And this is where we are grappling with this problem, because in Stockholm itself, if you look at a place which is called Rinkeby, or in Hulsta, where you have a lot of immigrants there, the schools do not have the resources, so there could be absenteeism there, or children are not motivated, and that is where the difference comes in. Whereas in the other schools, so there is an inequality. So Sweden has a lot of issues where inequality is concerned, and it has come under severe criticism as well, because these are some backward areas, the socio-economic backward areas, the schools do not have funding compared to the richer municipalities. So there is, I will not be able to say, but there, like how much, what is the economic part it plays a very important role depending on the which impacts absenteeism, because, and also another thing is that there is a lack of qualified teachers, right? So qualified teachers, because of the lack of qualified teachers, sometimes the student motivation also falls, and then absenteeism crops up. But another thing that I would like to also point out, each child gets is funded by the government. Okay, so each child gets a nominal amount as pocket money from the government, and if the child does not attend school, that money is taken away. So probably this is a way to curtail, limit absenteeism. So children out here are very lucky that way. They're not dependent on their parents. They get money from the government. And even as when I came into Sweden in my initial years, I was encouraged to join, to learn Swedish or to join any courses at the university. And I was paid, also given this agency called the CNN, I was given a nominal amount so that I could continue my studies. So they want to integrate or include you in the society. Yeah. Yes, thank you. I hope I've answered your question. I don't know.
Any other questions from the audience? Because we have another speaker also. So the time is very short, and we are also waiting for the lecture of Shumana Madam also from the Department of Psychology. I would request all of you that the lecture has already started or will be starting. So those who are interested, they can join that room. There is a different Microsoft Team link given there. And those who wish to stay for the lecture of Mrs. Sultana Kaniz Fatema, who is associated with Bangladesh Institute of Lifelong Learning, they can continue staying here. And Sanjay, are you there? I think there has been a technical issue with Mr. Sanjay Datta, who is the
Yes, ma'am.
So Sanjay, can you take over?
Okay, ma'am. I, on behalf of School of Education, Adamas University, and on my own behalf, extend a very heartfelt vote of thanks to Professor Shomit Rai, Honorable Chancellor, Adamas University, and Professor Dipendra Kumar Jha, Vice Chancellor, Adamas University, for their support to organize this lecture. We are thankful to have our respected Dean Madam Professor Mita Banerjee for organizing this lecture. I would like to thank Dr. Moumita Mukherjee, Dean, Research and Development, Adamas University, for extending her helping hands regarding this lecture. I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Khaleda Gonidat, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, for giving such a wonderful lecture which mesmerized us. I would like to thank Dr. Prarthita Vishwas, Head of the Department of Education, for arranging this lecture. I also extend my thanks to all participants for being with us. We have another lecture with Sultana Kaniz Fatema, Education Specialist, Dhaka, Bangladesh. Well, those who want to listen to her lecture, please be with us. Otherwise, you can use the link given by the Adamas University to access the lecture, which will be given by Dr. Shumana Datta, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology, Adamas University. Thank you, ma'am.
Can't hear you.
Bye, Khalida.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity, and take care. And thank you everyone for being such a wonderful audience. And we hope to keep the discussions alive and
Hope to
ongoing.
see you again.
Good to see you too. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
এটাকে আমি বেরিয়ে যাই, লিভ করে যাই। হ্যাঁ,
Mrs. Sultana Kanis Fatema, if you could please start your lecture. Respected Dean ma'am, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, could you please welcome Mrs. Sultana Kanis Fatema, and then I will give a brief introduction. I will give her a brief introduction, ma'am. She is here.
Okay.
And, just give a welcome message from our part.
Okay. Very good evening to you. I welcome you to the School of Education, Department of Education, Adamas University. You are so kind enough to, as Dr. Prathita Vishwa said, that you agreed immediately when she approached you. Thank you so much for coming
Yes, the slide is visible.
Us. Give me your thoughts on it.
Is it visible to speak?
I would request all of the audience to please keep your mics on mute. Otherwise, it is not possible for the speakers to speak.
So I request Dr. Praktita Vishwas to introduce you to the audience. Thank you.
Yes. Just a moment, ma'am. I think that her net connection is quite unstable. So she is not here. She was here, but now she has left. She is joining again. So if you could give 1 or 2 minutes, she is coming again. Yeah, Sultana, are you here? Could you please unmute yourself? You are muted. You are on mute.
Okay, should I start?
Yeah, I would give a brief introduction of yourself. So, Mrs. Sultana Kanis Fatema, she is the Executive Director and Education Specialist at
Let's start.
Child Care. And Kanis, I am introducing you. So, there's a lot of noise. Okay, so she is basically the executive director and education specialist of South Chateau Child Care and Early Learning Center and the course coordinator of Early Childhood Educator of Bangladesh Institute of Lifelong Learning at Dhaka, Ehsania, Dhaka, Bangladesh. He is the facilitator as well as the master trainer from the Institute of Child and Human Development Learning, which is installed IC in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And she has also been previously the education specialist from BRAC, IET, that is BRAC University. And she also did her MA program on leadership, planning and management from the same university. And she is very much inclined towards early childhood and their education, childhood care, that is her specialization areas. And she has been connected with various numerous NGOs nationally and internationally, and various educational institutions for the development of early childhood care. And with that, Mrs. Kanis Fatema, please you start your lecture.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Sure, sure.
Good evening, everybody. This is Sultana Kanis Fatima from Bangladesh. Sorry for a lot of this disruption about the and in our country. It was raining in the morning, so it disturbed a lot. So this time I really feel honored that today I'm going to Admas University. In earlier time, I have congratulated Admas University and the Honorable Chancellor, Professor Samit Roy, and his whole team for doing a novel work during COVID-19 time. Today and now, in the beginning of this lecture, I would like to thank the organizers, especially Professor Dr. and Professor Emeritus, School of Education, Adamas University, Praktita Vishwas, Associate Professor and Head of the Department, School of Education, Adamas University, and the moderator Sanjay Datta, and all those associate professionals with Adamas University as a whole. But at the end, I would like to say, last but not the least, the virtual students and the participants. Thank you for to be listening to my today's topic. Basically, is trying to find out some of the challenges to COVID-19 in this special area of early childhood. In the presentation, I would like to define and try to understand and talk about what countries up to 8 years old. The early childhood education consists of different activities and or experiences that are intended to affect developmental changes in children. And as we know that this is very important time for children's life, because children first learn how
Miss Kanis, are you there? শোনা যাচ্ছে? You just, I think it's better you turn off your video, Kanis. It is better if you turn off your video. So in that case, I think it will be more proper.
here some of the areas that like physical and development where and children hello. So, sorry to interrupt for the uh, and before the introduction, we were talking about some of the gross motor and fine motors are there are two of them are very important for children development. So gross motor means like running, jumping when they started climbing up, throwing out, catching something. Fine motors when they start using their fingers or pedals to grab something or to do something. Their social and emotional development. Here, children develop their feelings of self and other empathetic or sympathy. These are all of the areas they develop. Cognitive development and language development, where children starts to think and figure things out. And when they get any problem solving work or they to explore the for example maths and other cognitive skills. Ethical and moral development, where this represents difference in right or wrong and understand how to make the right choices. So this is the thing that actually we need to develop in our children, because it is right time for them to understand. So therefore addressing the whole child requires the consideration of each area of development. Next up, as we know that the current situation is really crisis type of situation that the worldwide is facing. So children's exposure to increased protection risk as a result of COVID-19 crisis may be influenced through a number of pathways. In a direct ways, the virus could result in loss of parental care due to health, illness, or separation, thereby placing children at keen risk for violence, neglect, or exploitation. There are some of the reference that we can find that at least 40 million children worldwide, nearly 22 millions are from South Asia, have missed out on early childhood education in their critical preschool year as COVID-19 shuttered childcare and early education facilities. Till today, 188 countries nearly have imposed countrywide school closures, affecting more than 1.5 billion children and youth. So up to 1.6 billion children and youth people have been affected by school closures. So as we know, the lockdown situation is really hampering a lot. Schools are closed and children cannot go outside or even their schools. And many do not have their internet access at home. COVID-19 has significant impact on children, parents, families, and caregivers, and especially for the most vulnerable and marginalized groups. If we look at an example of Bangladesh, so where young children in Bangladesh disrupted by COVID-19, the daycare ECD services for children from 0 to 3, those who are going to the daycare, the institutions are closed, and even the services cannot provide directly. Pre-primary education for children 4 to 6 years old, the schools that are closed. So still now it is not, or they are not open. So it's really hampering the early childhood education. Early learning in primary school for children age 6 to 8. So that is also disrupted by COVID-19. The care seeking for sick children, those are also hampered because the parents are very much aware and are afraid to take treatment for children with developmental difficulties and disabilities. If we talk about like not only one area, rather we can say that children, different areas that the impact of COVID-19 on fostering children's nurturing care, especially on health, because they are not getting access to the health center and the other health issues like vaccines. Still now there is not enough vaccine. Immunizations are hampered for the younger children and those whose parents are cannot go for work and then cannot go for job. So nutrition is somehow related with that, the parental job and income source. So nutrition is also hampered. Responsive caregiving is not enough there, as because the caregiver cannot go to the center. The daycare center schools are closed. Even for the children, those where the caregivers go to home and give the home service, they are not even allowed to go to the home. Children's safety and security is one of the issue where COVID-19 really impacted a lot. Children's early learning, so that we little bit talked about before few minutes ago, and still I will say that early learning is a very crucial and important area for children. However, that is hampered due to COVID-19. Psychological effect of COVID-19 on children across the world due to the spread of coronavirus disease. Children are affected by physical distancing, quarantines, and nationwide schools closed. So these are really making children to stay at home, and they are not getting enough education from the institutions. Children are vulnerable to COVID-19 virus diseases, so directly or indirectly, as their parents may affect from that. Their experiences anxiety, fear, and worry due to lockdown and quarantine. Isolation is one of the things that parents and peers resulting hostile consequences of mental health. If we look at one of the study by Arne, which is done for several countries. However, I just brought here a few of the examples to show how the stress level experiences by the families. If we see the country-wise, like Bangladesh, the 79%, which is really very much stress. India, 73%, Pakistan, 80%, and Philippines, 75%. These are really in high level or very much stress level. And now we talk about spatial childcare and COVID-19 risk. So children with disabilities face health risks, disruption, and marginalization under coronavirus. Parents who have COVID-19 may lack specialized childcare supports needed to isolate from their child. So it is really important sometimes for the special child. They may need the care or support anytime, but for the isolation, like parents, or they are going for, nowadays some of the offices are open, so they are leaving their children alone and they have to go. So in that case, this is one of the risks. No longer have the access to early learning services with a set of routine, and the teacher strain is um, and the teachers are not enough trained to provide the inclusive education. So children may not have the access to distance learning and online courses adapted to their new needs. So I'm not yet sure that like how many institutes are offering online courses, and if the schools, few of the schools are doing, but not, we cannot say the 100% because of the lack of access. Not only for the internet, but also the set and arrangement of the schools, and at the same time at home. And then we can talk about like children, those who lives in families are unable to provide
Ganesh, we cannot hear you. Is there any network problem over there?
there was, but you didn't listen for a long time. I was talking.
No, actually, for the last 2 minutes, we couldn't hear you. So if you continue this slide.
Okay, sorry. So can you hear now? Is it okay now?
Yes, I can hear now.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I don't know why today it's happened. So yeah,
Not an issue. Actually, this is the technical issue. It is out of
yeah.
our hands. So if you can briefly summarize, because as there is a technical issue continuously, if you don't mind, if you could briefly summarize the whole your presentation, and then we can discuss.
Okay. So I was talking about some of the issues that are really hampering an impact due to the COVID-19. So challenges not only in one areas, but also like poverty is one of the area, and also the remote area and the rural area. The children, those who are involved in the schools, they cannot, and they are missing their early learning. The crisis of economic, food insecurity, job loss, force of migration also are one of the important issue, and we cannot avoid the challenges for parents and other adults. Mental health and well-being, that challenges including the risk and violence that we know. Closing and disruption existing ECD programs. So we had a lot of ECD programs that some of them, I should say most of the things were closed and they could not even open the online. A very few of them they started. Lack of access to internet to remote area. So it is one of the big issue because big number of population stay in remote area. So when one of the concerning thing that is really need to discuss, like when programs reopen, so that the challenges will be social distancing. So I would like to talk about one of the assessment that is done by Bangladesh, and where we found like 83% reported experience in mental health, 45% reported their health facilities are inaccessible, 42% are hygiene materials are not easily accessible, 70% could not provide a varied diet to children between 6 and 23 months. Around 38% parents indicated no continuation education supports children in lockdown time, and 42 had heard about the remote-based education activities. They did not hear. So 62% household indicated that children staying at home. So think about the situation. 42 indicated beating by the parents of guardians at really increased a lot because children have to stay at home and the parents do not know how to keep them engaged. So social distancing and physical distancing, here really the two terms sometimes we are mixing up here, but however, WHO, they really indicated and focused how actually started the phase of physical distancing instead of social distancing. It's a way to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus for people. Although we know that staying apart from each other is physically, and it's even more important to connect socially to protect our emotional well-beings. So keep up relationships and social contacts while maintaining physical distance outside our own home. So I would like to talk about some of the initiatives the countries are doing it differently in different way. Different organizations also are trying to cope with the COVID-19 and doing so many support programs for the children. For an example, Lego Foundation, they have a play, how to engage children with play, CSM workshop. There are so many videos are also there. So that can be, integrated in our ECD program. BRAC in our country is doing telecommunication solution where they do not only involve the children but also involve the parents also. So in the conclusion, I would like to say and tell about the children directly and indirectly face pandemic COVID-19 crisis having an effect on their well-being. So all children, all ages, and in our all over the countries are being affected. Not only Bangladesh or India or a few countries, but overall we can see, in particular by the socio-economic impacts. And this is not only a particular crisis for one country, however, it is also a universal crisis for some children and impacting for lifelong. Their lifelong learning is impacting and also their health issue. Children with disability depend face-to-face services including health, education, protection, which have been suspended as a part of social distancing and lockdown measures. They are least likely to benefit from distance learning solutions. So here we need to really work out how we can make programs of online we can offer, and so that they can get access of that. Early childhood is the most critical time for positive intervention, and this development during this stage is strongly affected by their environment, and COVID-19 is one of them. And that this effect also continues to spread as a strong influence on the rest of their lives. So this is important that early educational and life skill programs begin at the early stage, and we need to work on it. So here, like public measures for everyday help, like UNICEF and other organizations also showed some of the preventive actions: stay at home when you are sick, covering mouth and nose with a flex elbow and or tissue when coughing and sneezing, dispose of used tissue immediately, washing hands, cleaning the touch surface. So here some of the tips I would like to offer at the end, as because we were talking about early childhood and the impact of COVID-19 or effect. So what can be done at home, as most of the children are at home. So here some of the tips that may be useful or helpful for us. So children may have difficulty face. Especially in the schedule, their environment. So try to help your child keep busy throughout the day. Try to keep a structure in your child's day, because they really want to follow, like what will be next, what am I going to do in the morning or in the afternoon or at night. So they fix their routine, establish consistent schedule for waking up. That was I was talking: meals, play, schoolwork, everyday jobs. Because nowadays, some of the online schools programs are offering. So children have to sit down and conduct the session with the teacher. So how they will be. So that is very important. And the responsibility, they can take a daily responsibility. The parents need to involve them in some of the work, physical activity, bedtime, and other routines. Arrange designated time for those using computer and other electronic devices. Sometimes we leave the children, giving a iPad or mobile, but we do not know how they are using. So how they can use positively, that we need to also supervise. So we can find some of the books. Obviously, books are around us. The parents can read and give them to read. Children can also look at the pictures and try to write about some of the very simple stories from there. Games should be given them, for an example, puzzles or any other types of games that can be done indoor. And if they are allowed to go outside in the park, they can go and then involve in the games. And project work, which is very important. Project work can involve children a lot. Parents can provide them different types of project work, like gardening. They can do other, doing some of the artwork or craft work that they enjoy. Cleaning, everyday cleaning, fixing their beds, or when the parents go for cooking, they can be involved. Or they can do any science experiment with a plantation, or in the small garden. You can say that where will we get the garden, because we are in the urban life. So in the veranda we can also arrange or organize. Art and craft is very important topic that children really like. Perform means like they can do drama or simple type of fun activity. Dance is very important thing that children can involve, because they can move. So we also adults need to do some movement activities, as hamper due to the lockdown. Outside our premises, so the driveway can be our yard, garden, etc. So links, online fun and learning websites. Story time is very this is a very important. I think I should say that one of the area where parents can focus. So children really loves to listen. Activity can be done from the story time. virtual or online even calendar can be, so we can also make of them. Children can tick mark, and then so these are the things I did, and what else next we can do. So taking some of the but apart from these, children needs to take some of the time to get fresh air and connect with the nature. So I think like by saying this, I would like to conclude here. Thank you very much for your patience and listening to me. If there is any questions or discussion, you are most welcome. And I would like to say sorry for the interruption. So there are so many disruptions of the internet. I'm sorry if you miss any of my part of my lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sultana Khanis Fatema, for your nice deliberation. And now I would request the audience, if you could directly, there are a lot of students also, and you are having a total paper on childhood and growing up, where you will be doing your practicum also. So in that context, I would request, or I would like to ask our students to please ask questions or interact with Sultana ma'am, so that it will be useful for you in the future. So over to you. You can turn on your microphone and you can ask. And also I would ask my colleagues as well as the professors and teachers, if they can also ask her any questions, she would be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, most welcome. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Are you there? Okay,
yes,
okay.
Yes. Now we all can, I think, hear you.
See, everything is gone. Now the line is really very clear. So
anyone, please, I would request the students also, as well as my colleagues, if you could please come up with some questions. So it is becoming very interesting. So it would be more interesting and encouraging for the speaker, because the speaker always wants that there should be a interaction session. So any question that you would like to ask, or any observation? I see Chandrima, Madhurima, then Shreyoshi, then those who are more or less asking questions. So if you could come up with some question and ask ma'am.
and if there is no question, you can comment.
Yeah, if there is no question, you can give feedback also.
Ma'am, it's Shreyoshi.
Yes, Shreyoshi, tell me.
First of all, good evening to the honorable judge, to the honorable guests present. And my question is, what should be or what can be the role of teacher in a proper mental development of a child in isolation period, as in now is a pandemic situation?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Did you hear the question of a student, Shreyoshi?
I think not all, but partly I heard. Maybe she was asking about the role of teacher.
Should I pardon my question?
Yes, please.
Sorry?
Should I pardon my question?
Yeah.
Ma'am, my question is... Ma'am, my
You can repeat. Are you asking about the role of the...
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is a very, I think, nice and important questions. Actually, what will be, we talk a lot, but what will be the role of the teachers? This is really very important because teacher are the important role model for the children. Even when they come home, they also, remember their teachers and want to follow what actually the teacher talked about in the classroom. So during this COVID-19, as the children are at home, so teachers, they can do lots of work. For an example, they many activity face to face. Work hard, video clips, then if the games or videos can, if you cannot make by yourself, you can download and show to the children. And also let the parent know what actually your plan is, what you are going to do with the children during this the COVID time, because the lockdown time is really, we don't know when it will be stopped. So the online session is really very challenging sometimes because children cannot stay for long time in front of the computer, maybe for listening to the teacher. So they sometimes they can move. So give them some of the movement activities, or some of the art and craft, or I gave some of the list also. So example, story time. So give some of the stories so that they also read, they can also read with the parents, and parents can ask questions. So you prepare some of the leading questions on the stories and give to the parents, so that parents can also take those questions to ask the students. When they can read, they can tell the stories and give them the answer. So and also you have to prepare some of the activities. For an example, the tiger and the farmer, for an example, a story. So you have to tell them to draw, cut and paste, and also some of the story map also. So they can do some of the concept notes by drawing. So these things, if you prepare one of the activity sheet and send it to the parents, and I think the parents can help to do that with the children. Thank you. Did I make
Thank you so much, ma'am.
clear?
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're most welcome. Any other?
Good evening, everyone. I am audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I'm from Bangladesh and I am a student of Adamas University CSC 4th year. So আমি অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ জানাই মিস সুলতানা কানিস ফাতেমাকে এত সুন্দরভাবে আমাদের দেশের এডুকেশন সিস্টেমটাকে এক্সপ্রেস করার জন্য। থ্যাংক ইউ এভরিওয়ান।
আপনাকেও ধন্যবাদ, এবং শুনে খুশি হলাম যে আপনি বাংলাদেশ থেকে জয়েন করেছে বাংলাদেশে, এবং আপনি জয়েন করেছেন আমাদের সাথে। আমি খুব খুশি হয়েছি। আমাদের আসলে আমার যখন এখানের অনেক স্টুডেন্টরা এবং অনেক পার্টিসিপেন্টরা জানতে পারলো যে আমাদের এই প্রোগ্রামটা আপনাদের, তখন ওনারা so many also showed their interest to join in this program, like what you are doing here. For an example, to this program, they were so much curious to be involved here. So I told them, okay, maybe next time you can join, or next time. So there will be, I don't know the systems now, so you can be involved. I will forward your message to the authority. Thank you.
And thank you. I think that we should close the session with the permission of respected Dean ma'am. And Mrs. Sultana Kanes Fatema, you have been very kind enough, as ma'am has said, that we approached you in the last moment, and you have agreed. And though there were a lot of technical difficulties, but still you managed to finish the lecture within time. So thank you from our part. And the vote of thanks has already been given by Mr. Sanjay Datta. I think that today there is a problem of network disruptions. Sanjay is having a problem with the network. So he has already given the vote of thanks. So finally, I would hand over to ma'am, our respected Dean ma'am, for the closing of this session, ma'am. Ma'am, over to you, please.
Thank you, Prakrita. Yes, the lecture was really enlightening. We had just been to Bangladesh last February and during the Bhasha Divas, and we enjoyed our stay there. And we also attended a seminar there, and it was really, really very encouraging. So nice to meet you in this virtual way, and hope to meet you again. And nice to hear from you too. Thank you so much.
And thank you, all my colleagues, participants, Sultana, to you and all the students of Adamas University. Since all the students of Adamas University of different departments are here, so ma'am, I know that you will also agree that this has been a very successful and good program, because all the schools has participated in both the programs, and especially this program where another important lecture is also going on. So we are really fortunate and happy from the Department of Education, School of Education. And with that, with the permission of respected Dean ma'am, I will end the session, ma'am, with your permission.
Yes, yes, you can.